Hi Kinders, Mrs. Croft here. Today we're going to learn some more about Native Americans. But before we get going, let's go through our vocabulary so we know what we're talking about. Number 1, canoes. Canoes are the light, narrow boats made from long, hollowed-out logs and trees. Example, the Cherokee moves silently down the river in their canoes. Number 2, moccasins. Moccasins are the soft shoes made of leather and sometimes decorated with beads or feathers or little bits of bone. Example, the Sioux used buffalo hides to make moccasins. The third one is teepees. Teepees are cone-shaped tents made from long poles and covered with animal skins. Example, the Plains Indians built teepees for their homes. Number 4, totem poles. Totem poles are wooden logs that were carved with many animal faces or objects, and they were painted and put vertically in the ground. That means they were standing up and down. Example, Native American tribes of the Pacific Northwest made many totem poles. Now, can you name 3 tribes that we've been talking about? The Lakota Sioux, the Wampanoags, and the Lenape. Now you're going to hear the names of several other tribes in today's read aloud. Some of those names are going to be the Pueblo, the Hopi, the Iroquois, the Navajo, and the Zuni Pueblo. So, as I read, listen carefully and see if you can find those places. Now, some of these other tribes lived in other parts of the country. Some lived in the western part of the United States, which is now Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. And we will learn about those. So let's get started with our story. And here we go. A. A is for adobe bricks that the Pueblos made and the Pueblo houses. B. B is for buffaloes that galloped across the plains. C. C is for the canoes that drifted on the silent river. D. D is for drum songs that were sung long ago. E. This is a tricky one. E is for the elders who led their tribes in prayer. F. F is for the feasts that were made up of clams and corn. G. Now I know you want to say totem, but G is for the great tales that they told with the totem poles. So those totem poles tell stories, and those animals and things that they put on there, that's part of the great tales that they told. H. H is for a Hopi oven that baked warm bread. I. I is for the Iroquois, and he's a runner on the trail. J. J is the juniper berries, and they used those to dye and tan blankets. So when they squeeze these berries down, the juice from the berry makes a beautiful color of red and blues and maybe some purples. K. K is for Kachina dancers who hoped for the rain. So they would dance and dance for rain, and that's why they're called Kachinas. L. L is for the longhouses that were built out of logs and bark. M. M is for moccasins made of leather and beads. N. N is for the Navajo people who herded flocks of sheep. O. O is for ornaments which made clothing more beautiful. Can you find the ornaments in this picture? P. P is for the powwow that's held now and then, and they still have powwows today. Q. Q is for quills, quills from a porcupine, and they were used for weaving. R. R is for rugs that a Navajo has woven on a loom. S. S is for salmon. Salmon is a fish, and they cooked it in woven baskets, steamed it right up. T. Bet you got this one. T is for teepees made with buffalo hides. U. U is for under. The Navajo slept under hoga and roofs. It's kind of like they're underground, but they're above the ground. But they put the dirt on top and the clay. V is for venison. Venison was the deer meat that the Iroquois travelers used plenty of times, and they'd make stew out of it. W is for the Wampanoag Weetoos. Now, the tribe is called the Wampanoags, but the houses they lived in are called Weetoos. X. X is for the X's which decorated their tribal dresses. Y. Y is for the young children who listen to the stories. And C is for the Zuni Pueblo who crafted water jars. They're very beautiful. Now, you can go back through this story and turn the sound off and see if you can name all the alphabet letters and the items that go with those letters. So we've learned many things. And look at all the different houses that they lived in. Teepees, longhouses, pueblos, hogans, and weetoos. Let's do some comprehension. What are some of the things Native Americans used to make these homes? Look at the picture. They used buffalo hides, logs, bark, and adobe bricks. Now, look at these houses again. How are these houses the same? And then how are they different? Discuss this with someone. Now, what are some of the things the Native Americans did that you heard about in this read aloud? Discuss it with someone. If you said they had powwows, they listened to stories, they hoped for rain, they hunted buffalo, they cooked food, they played drums, built homes, made clothing out of baskets and water jars and rugs and blankets, and they herded sheep, you are probably correct. And if you can think of anything else, that would be great. Why are there so many different kinds of homes and types of homes and foods and ways of traveling? If you said because there's many different kinds of tribes and they lived in different places, you were correct. Now let's do some word work. In the read aloud, you heard M was for moccasins, made of leather and beads. Say the word moccasins with me. Moccasins. Moccasins are soft shoes made of leather, often decorated with beads and feathers. Many Native American people wore moccasins to protect their feet as they walked through the Great Plains. Now, how are moccasins similar to your shoes that you wear? And then how are they different? Discuss this with someone and then move on. Try to use the word moccasin when you talk about it. Now, what's the word we've been talking about? Moccasins. What sound do you hear at the end of the word moccasins? If you said it's kind of like a Z-S sound, you are correct. The letter S is added to the word to show that there's more than one thing. If I just said moccasin, that would be one shoe. But when I put an S at the end, that means there's more than one. So moccasins says there's more than one. What other words can you think of that has an S at the end to make it more than one? Think to yourself and then tell someone, such as, if I had a bird, if I add an S, then I have birds. So why don't you try adding some S's to some things that you know? Well, thanks for listening. That ends our Native American alphabet, and thanks for learning.